Hi, my name's Alex Lacy, and I'm happy to be one of the secondary maths learning designers at Oxford University Press. And we're happy to have you all here today to look at the changes to the Victorian Curriculum Mathematics version 2.0 and to have a look at some of the challenges facing schools and how we can flip them into opportunities. We'll then have a look at the new Oxford Maths 7 to 10 Victorian Curriculum second edition, having a look at both the print and digital features of the product. But we'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the many lands on which we create and share our learning resources. We acknowledge the traditional owners as the original storytellers, teachers, and students of the land we call Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. So, a quick rundown of this webinar today. We'll start with a summary of the key changes to the structure and content of the new curriculum. Then we'll look at some of those challenges and find opportunities in the curriculum. After that, I'll introduce you to Oxford Maths 7 to 10, the Victorian Curriculum second edition. And we'll have some time for questions at the end. But if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them when we can. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter and author, Morgan Levick. Morgan's a senior maths teacher at Nossal High School, and he studied at the University of Melbourne doing a Bachelor of Science in Pure and Discrete Mathematics and an Advanced Diploma in Operations Research. He enjoys writing novel and challenging questions with a keen interest in probability and mathematical programming. So thank you, Morgan. Morgan, you're on mute.
You're good to go now, Morgan. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you, Alex. Sorry about that. I'm happy to be here as well. And as Alex said, I'm going to take you through the key changes to the content for the Victorian curriculum. So we'll start with that. And the VCAR updates their curriculum every few years. And the good news is that the curriculum is not changing too much this time. The goals that the VCAR have is to streamline and refine the content to allow for greater depth. So we don't just have to scratch the surface of some topics, we can go deeper on them. They want to include Victorian priorities, but also be consistent with the Australian curriculum at the same time. And then they also want to prepare students for the challenges and opportunities of the future. So that's that sort of 21st century skills that you might hear about, transferable skills. So that's where things like coding and modeling come into the curriculum here. So the old structure was that there were 3 paired strands. Now they're unpaired, so there are just 6 separate strands, and there are no substrands now. So it's a little bit more streamlined, a little less confusing, and each of the strands has dot points and then elaborations that you can use to help you teach them. So Oxford put together this guide for the changes to the curriculum, which is available to download now. I think Alex wanted to tell you about that. Is that right, Alex?
Yes. So we've put together this guide to the curriculum. It's got all of the changes that we're discussing in this first part of the webinar, which you'll see in the next part as well. This is downloadable if you scan the QR code, or if you're here in the webinar today, you can download it if you go to handouts at the top right next to Q&A. You'll be able to download this brochure now.
Great. So yeah, we can see that there's a greater emphasis on mathematical modeling, statistical investigations, probability simulations, and estimation. And estimation there means like approximations in errors and things like that. And then yeah, there's more focus on algorithms and computational thinking, which we'll talk a lot about today. Okay, so I'll take you through some of the changes. So these are all in the guide, so we won't go through them in great detail, but we'll be able to see here how these things that VCAR are trying to emphasize keep coming up. So we can see here in year 7 already, design algorithms involving a sequence of steps and decisions. And what's been removed is that we no longer have to do that using a general purpose programming algorithms. So I'll just see if I can draw that on the side here. Yeah, so this general purpose programming language idea has been taken out, which is a bit of a relief. So we don't have to teach students how to code in something like Python or Java or something. It's now just algorithms on their own, and then in later years it gets into pseudocode. And we can see at the bottom here there's plan and conduct statistical investigations and the probability simulations as well. In year 8 we can see mathematical modeling being brought in here, or being emphasized here, I should say. And again, algorithms, statistical investigations, repeated chance experiments. So the first two ones here actually are showing that some of the curriculum has just been moved around. So when it comes to geometry, they wanted to move a couple of things from early years and later years and just put them where they think they belong. Yeah, again, some mathematics in year 9. This is some mathematical modeling, and this one down here, I'm actually really excited about. They are going to explicitly put into the course, the curriculum, that we show students the effect of parameters on graphs using digital tools. So this is something like if you're using Desmos and you're teaching transformations of graphs, you can show how when you put a parameter in the function that a slider is created, and you can show, for example, that if there's a plus c at the end of the graph, then that'll shift it up and down. So just explicitly making that link between the algebra and how that affects the graph, and I think that's going to be really useful for teaching students. That'll help with understanding for sure. In year 9 again, repeated chance experiment, conducting simulations. Yeah, this stuff keeps coming up, as we say. In year 10, a few more things added. You can see here in year 10, this is when pseudocode is first brought in. So it says pseudocode or a general purpose programming language. I think most schools will do pseudocode here. So year 10 is the first time where pseudocode is mentioned specifically. So you don't have to do it until year 10, which is a bit of a relief. And down here as well, plan and conduct simulations and statistical investigations here as well. And in 10A, there's just been a few more things added for the advanced students as well. Okay, so the second part of today is we're going to talk about the challenges that we as teachers are going to face in implementing this curriculum. And then part 3, we'll talk about the opportunities that we have. So part 2, we're going to get a scope of the problem before we learn how to solve it. So at Oxford, we've identified 3 key challenges that we'll have in implementing this curriculum. And the first challenge is the knowledge and skills gap that we have in our classrooms. The second challenge is the teacher shortages, which we're all aware of. And the third challenge, of course, is how are we actually going to teach this algorithmic thinking and computational thinking. So the first one, the knowledge and skills gap in maths classrooms. What this means is it's, when you have a class, you might have some students who are working a couple of levels ahead and some that are working a few levels behind. And therefore, we have a wide range of abilities. The gap is the gap between our best students, our highest achieving students, and our lowest achieving students. And we know, in year 7, we could have a wide gap. We could have some students working at level 9 and some students only working at level 3 or 4. So this slide just kind of tells us about how our numeracy results aren't up to scratch and we want to improve them, and students are feeling a bit anxious about math. So I won't dwell on that too much. So the knowledge and skills gap, the way that affects students in the classroom is for the lower achieving students, that can give them maths anxiety, reduce their confidence, make them not want to be as engaged in class anymore. And they could just drop off and they're getting low scores, they don't want to try anymore, they're putting in less effort and really not enjoying themselves. And for the higher achieving students, actually, it can reduce their engagement as well and reduce their achievement from what their potential is. So the higher achieving students also have learning needs as well. They have a right to be extended. That's their learning need. And of course, if we're teaching a class where there's a wide range of abilities, we're probably going to focus on the lower students and help them increase their achievement, and maybe not focus as much on the higher achieving students, but they deserve to be extended as well. For teachers, the way that the knowledge and skills gap affects us, of course, is that we're expected to differentiate our teaching to meet the needs of all of our students. And Oxford has found that the biggest constraint we have for doing that, of course, is time. Like, there's only so much time we have in our week, and also resources. We need more resources and appropriate resources to be able to differentiate teaching. You can see that 97% of teachers said they don't have enough time to differentiate as well as they would want to. And if we just had one class to work with, and we could write an individual learning plan for each of our students, and make sure that we're meeting all of their learning needs. But of course, we don't have one class. We have 4 or 5 classes. We have 100 students or so. There's just not enough time to be able to differentiate properly. So we need to figure out ways to help solve that issue. The second challenge is the teacher shortage, which we've all heard a lot about, of course. And this is accelerated after COVID. A lot of teachers leaving the profession during COVID and after COVID. So here are some scary headlines that we've collated about the teacher crisis, the teacher shortage in Victoria. So to understand the scope of this problem here, there are hundreds of teaching positions that are still unfilled at the moment, and I have first-hand experience with this. I know a friend of mine had to take a term off for a medical reason, and he's a maths teacher, and his school was literally not able to find a teacher for the term that he was gone. So his classes were having a substitute teacher every single class for a whole term, which is really difficult for the students and also for him and the school. So, the teacher shortage is affecting a lot of teachers and a lot of schools. A lot of teachers are teaching subjects that they're not qualified to teach or haven't been trained to teach, I should say. And we know this happens in maths a lot. A science teacher or a PE teacher might get tapped on the shoulder and told, you have to teach year 7 maths, you have to teach year 8 maths. And, God bless them for doing that. We need them to do that. But we also need to support them because they're not trained to teach maths. So for their benefit and the students' benefit, we need to help those teachers who are teaching maths despite not being trained to teach maths. Another big part of the problem is teachers leaving the profession during and after COVID. I know as well from first-hand experience, there are a lot of older teachers, more experienced teachers who were saying, I'm going to retire in the next 5 years or so. And then when COVID hit, they said, okay, I'm retiring right now. So there was also, a lot of teachers retiring at once, and then we're losing a lot of those positions and their expertise as well. So that was quite challenging. We know shortages are worse in regional and rural areas as well. And graduate and early career teachers are leaving the profession after a short amount of time getting into it because they feel like they're not supported. So that's a pretty scary statistic. More than 40% of teachers leave the profession within 5 years. That's something that we want to be able to change. The third challenge, this is the big one, I think, incorporating computational and algorithmic thinking. So every year I go to MavCon, the Maths Association Victoria conference in December. And the last 2 years there's been a lot of tension and a lot of stress about algorithmic thinking and specifically pseudocode coming into the BC subjects, year 11 and 12, methods and spec. There's been lots of discussions about it, lots of workshops about it, even keynote speeches about it as well. So it's something that a lot of teachers are intimidated by and feeling underprepared for. So we need to confront this issue. Obviously, coding and algorithms they're not going away. They're just going to get more and more ingrained in the maths curriculum as the years go on. So we have to get ready to teach it. We can't avoid this issue, and it is quite stressful for a lot of teachers, because a lot of us haven't been trained to teach this. A lot of us haven't even actually learned this in the first place as well. So it's quite intimidating to be told that we have to teach this now. So this is what this topic looks like in year 7 to 10. And we can see that the general purpose programming language is now optional, and pseudocode is now the option as well. So I think a lot of schools will be doing pseudocode when it gets to year 10, especially because that's what students are doing in year 11 and 12. So a bit of time before we have to do pseudocode, but that's when it comes in year 10. So that was all the pessimism. The optimism is the ways that we can solve these issues, the ways that we can find opportunities with the changes to the Victorian curriculums and overcome these challenges that we have. So the opportunities relate directly to the challenges there. So the first one is how to deal with the issue of the knowledge and skills gap. So Oxford released a report in 2021 about the knowledge and skills gap in Australian classrooms. I wrote an article for this. They asked me to write an article on how I was assessing my students online during COVID. And, this was a report with teachers, academics, discussing the scope of the problems and strategies for overcoming this issue. And that's available for free on the Oxford website. So that's worth reading. And then Oxford also did a roundtable discussion with academics and teachers as well, which can be watched on YouTube about this same issue. The key findings in the Oxford report were something not very surprising. The transition from year 6 to year 7 is the biggest challenge for students and teachers. So it's important to identify the issues that students have in year 7. We can't start differentiating unless we understand the scope of the problem and have an assessment of where students are at in the first place. So it's really important to do a lot of that in year 7. Biggest gaps are in year 7, 8, and 9. So if we can focus on those years, then we can get on top of the issue as best we can before VCE. They found that differentiating teaching is obviously the most important thing. Easier said than done, but that's what we have to do, is differentiate our teaching for the different levels of students that we have. And the research shows that students want to be taught how to solve problems in the real world and develop their skills for problem solving. So incorporating that as much as we can is really helpful. And the last major finding was that maths anxiety is a real thing. We should talk about it with students, talk about it openly, tell them we know how they're feeling, and openly discuss the issue and how to overcome it. So one thing that's important to keep in mind is to stay positive about the changes and think that when these new changes come in, this is actually an opportunity for us to try something new. And a lot of us have been teaching the same subjects for years and years, so now there's something new in the course to teach. It's a new opportunity to try something different. And the stuff that's coming in, nobody expects you to get that perfect the first year that you're teaching it. So it's a good opportunity to try things, and if it works, that's great. You do it again, and if it doesn't work, then you scrap it and try something new next year. So you can tell the students, this is the first time we're teaching this, and experiment and try new things. Something else to keep in mind is that, as I said before, students want maths to feel like it's relevant to the real world, and that will help with their engagement as well. So trying to do that as often as we can is really helpful for them. And the last one, I teach VCE as well, so I've noticed this, that there are students in year 11 and 12 that still have gaps in their understanding of some basic things. And if we can get on top of those early, that's going to be really useful for the students to help with their confidence and to help with, just fixing those issues early. So when they're in year 11 and 12, they're not still having trouble with things like fractions and index laws. So identifying the issues that they have and overcoming them early is really important. For the lower achieving students as well, it's really important to celebrate the small wins with them. So, you might have some students in the class who don't really do work when we give them time to do independent work. And, if one class we can convince them to do 2 or 3 textbook questions, that's not enough. We still want them to do more than that, but it is a small win. So praising them for that and celebrating that with them is important. And if they're improving in their tests, even the lowest achieving students who are getting the lowest scores on your tests, if they're improving their scores or they're continuing to work hard and not give up, then we need to praise them for that and help celebrate those wins with them to keep them motivated. All right, so the second issue, the teacher shortage and teacher burnout, the strategy we have for overcoming that, we have 4 tips for that. So the first one is to reuse as many resources as you can. So like I said, the curriculum's not changing that much, which is good. So that means almost all the resources that you have now that you're using now, you'll still be able to use in the future. So that's good to know. And then, of course, we don't want to be writing all of our resources from scratch because we are under a lot of time constraints. So anytime we can source resources, that's really useful as well. So there are lots of places you can do that online, places like MAV and AMT and ACARA, to get our resources so we don't have to spend our time making new resources from scratch. The second tip we have is to develop a network of maths teachers and help each other as much as we can. So like I said, I go to MavCon every year, and it's a great place to meet maths teachers and to catch up with teachers that you might have taught with previously in another school, or teachers that you went to university with. And, it's really useful to talk to them and see, what are you doing at your school? How do you do this? And to share resources and talk about the things that you're doing. So developing a network of maths teachers can be really useful and help cut down on your preparation time. Just a quick anecdote, I had a friend at university who was teaching at a public school, and I caught up with him at MavCon, and he said the summer was going to be really stressful for him because he had to design the specialist maths course for his school from scratch because it was going to be the first time they were offering it, and he had to teach it. He was put in charge of teaching it and designing the course. So I said, I'll send you what we do at my school. I'll send you the planner that we use, the list of textbook questions that we use, and the assessments and the assignments. And just gave him that as a way to get started. So at least he had a template of what he could do and things like that. And he was really grateful for that. And, just asking for help can really can give you save you a lot of time if you just ask another teacher for help. A third tip we have.
Morgan, before you go on, we're just getting a bit of feedback from your mic. So can you just check it's plugged in, right?
Is this better or is this?
I think it's still going a bit. I think it says your cord is moving.
I'm not sure how to fix that. Is this okay now?
Yeah, I think if you just try and stay still and not move your headphone cord around as much, it should be okay. Thanks.
All right, I'll do my best. Sorry about this. The third tip we have is to adopt a whole school approach to curriculum planning. So if you can talk to your head of maths or the curriculum committee at your school and try to share the load of all the admin work that you have to do. So if there are 3 teachers that teach year 8 maths at your school, getting together, for example, and deciding, I'm going to organize the assessment for this topic, you choose the textbook questions, and things like that, and making sure that you're each doing a third of the admin work rather than everybody doing 100% of the admin work. The fourth tip is to support our grad teachers and early career teachers as much as we can so they stay in the profession. And I know my first couple of years of teaching, I was doing work every evening and every weekend, trying to keep up with the workload. trying to make sure I was prepared for every class. So in order for teachers not to burn out, we want to make sure that they do have some work-life balance and they're not feeling like they're, don't have time to do anything other than work, because that's how they're going to burn out. The third opportunity, of course, this is related to the algorithms and computational thinking. And I think we have 3 tips here. I'd actually like to start with tip 2, because tip 2 is about starting small and learning with your students. So for this topic, it might be a little bit awkward for us because we might not be the expert in the room anymore. Like when we're teaching, we're usually the expert, we know more than the students, and we're passing on our knowledge to them. Whereas there's probably a good chance that there are going to be students in the class who know more about algorithms and coding that you do. They've grown up with this stuff. Some of them will know it really well. So trying to engage with them and getting them to help with the teaching process, getting them to help their peers and help you is actually really useful as well. So, being honest with the students and saying, I didn't learn this at university, I haven't been trained to teach this, so we're going to learn it together. The students will respect that if you're just upfront and honest with them rather than pretending that you are still the expert if you're not. I know I teach algorithms as a standalone topic in Year 11 specialist, and there's a student in my class who knows this stuff really well, and he's telling me, this should be indented, and that for loop should have actually gone to 6 instead of 5, and things like that. So, involving him with the class and getting his help is actually really useful for me, and it's a little bit awkward. Requires us to be a little bit humble, but we might not be the experts, and we don't have to pretend to be. The first tip, which I want to go through now, is that to remind ourselves and to tell students that we actually already know some algorithms. So every kid learns an algorithm to tie their shoe when they're only 3 or 4 or 5 years old. So tying your shoes is an algorithm. The definition of an algorithm is an unambiguous set of instructions. So things like recipes are algorithms, tying your shoes are an algorithm. Addition, subtraction, they're algorithms. Long multiplication, long division, they're algorithms. So students actually learn this stuff without giving a name to it when they're quite young. When we're teaching them the addition algorithm, we say, if you add those 2 numbers and it's bigger than 10, then just write the last digit down and then carry the 1 across to the next column. So that's an if-then statement. We don't call it that, but that's an algorithm and it has conditional statements in it. So students actually know this stuff already, and trying to give it a name would be really useful. And reminding them that they already know this is really useful. And this stuff is going to be taught in primary school, or it's supposed to be taught in primary school here. So hopefully students will come through with this sort of knowledge, and you can see here that they should hopefully come through with some understanding of algorithmic terms. So they have names for things, and when we're talking to them about it in Year 7 and 8 and 9, it's not something completely new to them. It's something that they've built on throughout primary school, hopefully, if the primary school's taught it. And the third tip we have, this is something Alex was talking about, it was telling me about recently, and I thought it was a really good tip, is you can look ahead to see what is going on in methods and specialists in Year 11 and 12. Because methods and specialists have put pseudocode into the course now, and really if we want to know how far students have to go with algorithmic thinking and pseudocode in high school, we can look at what they're doing in methods and specialists, and then we know that's the upper limit. We don't have to go higher than that. So if you're teaching something in Year 10, we know that we don't have to do anything harder than they're doing in specialists, for example. So that also might give you a bit of confidence as well, that you can do the stuff that they're doing in methods and specialists. So of course you can do the stuff in Year 7, 8, 9, 10. There are the VC textbooks, and then VCAR has put out sample questions, and then last year was the first year that it was on the exam. So it's worth looking at them and seeing how difficult it can get, and knowing what the limit is for what you might have to cover in high school. All right, and I'll throw over to Alex now, who's going to talk about the Oxford, the new series of Oxford textbooks.
Great, thanks, Morgan. I'll just go to the next slide. And I'd like to introduce everyone to Oxford Maths 7 to 10 Victorian Curriculum 2nd edition, which is a teaching and learning resource purpose-written for the new Victorian Maths curriculum, and it's designed to help you deliver differentiated instruction that meets the needs of all students and makes maths accessible for everyone in your classroom. We offer different types of access depending on what suits your school and your needs best. So we have the more traditional print book, which includes digital access for 12 months. We have digital-only subscriptions as well, if you prefer to forego the print book. We also have a teacher version of the digital access as well, which includes extra resources like lesson plans. So now let's have a look at the key features of the series. Before I jump in, I will warn you that this is more like the teaser trailer, not the full movie. It's not designed for you to have all the answers afterwards. It's to get you interested. And if you want to know more and get the slowed down version of this, you'll be able to reach out to any of our sales consultants here in Victoria, and they'll be able to take you through the details that you need to know. So let's move on to the print book. So we have modules. So previously we've called these chapters, and now we're using the terminology module. And these all begin with a colourful opening spread and include a list of all of the lessons or topics included in each module, and have a detailed list of the prerequisite skills required for each topic and a link to the pre-test, which we'll come back to later. We also include a link of the Victorian Curriculum version 2.0 curriculum links and any materials students might require, like a calculator or some graphing paper. The diagnostic pretest, there's one for each module, and it's designed to group students into 3 levels based on their results in the pretest. It's not a pretest of the content in the module, it's a pretest of what they need to know before they start it. And we'll see an example of one of these later in the presentation. Each prerequisite skill also has an attached interactive skill sheet, which is an online worksheet designed to help them learn and assess their knowledge of the skill. We'll see an example of one of these soon as well. Moving into a lesson, we start with learning intentions provided in plain English, as well as what we call interyear links. Because we've designed this series as a continuum of learning across years 7 to 10, we designed these to be able to move between the levels. So here we have access to some support year 5-6 content, as well as some year 8 content that's all related to this year 7 lesson on classifying angles and lines. So this information is provided both digitally and in the print book. We have theory, it's all color-coded, so theory is blue. It's written with the latest pedagogical research in mind. It's all in dot points and tables, colorful diagrams, all designed to be simple, engaging explanations that your students will be able to understand and follow. Every lesson has between 1 and 5, but usually 3 or 4 worked examples written in a clear think, write format, so students can see what they should be thinking in their head, as well as what they should be writing down on a piece of paper. Every worked example comes with an accompanying video, which is a teacher working through the problem on an iPad and just speaking about what they're thinking and then what they're writing down. So it's designed to be very student-friendly and to help them engage with the worked example. Every lesson also includes some helpful hints before the exercises actually start. This includes common misconceptions, common mistakes, or helpful tips and tricks to help them remember the theory. Things like using SOHCAHTOA to remember trig ratios. Halfway through a module, we have a checkpoint quiz, which is designed to help you check in with your students when you're halfway through the module to make sure you don't get to the end and realize that they're still struggling to understand the first part of the content. There's an online checkpoint quiz included as well. Just to be clear, this does include different questions, so you can use the print book and the digital quiz as well and know that there's no double up. At the end of a module, we have a comprehensive review, which starts with a 1-page summary of all of the content in that module. I like to think that if you took the 10 summary pages from the Year 7 book, you would have a lovely 10-page summary book for the whole year. The next part of the review is a mathematical literacy review, which has a list of key terms and some questions to check that students actually understand what those key terms mean from throughout the module before they start seeing them in questions. Because we know that sometimes the reason a student can't answer the question is because they actually just don't understand what the words mean. So we've got here to help with that. We also include a Quizlet revision set with all of those key terms as well, so students can practice online. After that, we have multiple choice, short answer, and mathematical modelling questions included to help students practice the different types of questions that they'll see throughout high school. We'll have, at the end of every module, we have a checklist of all of the success criteria for the module. There's an online version of this checklist as well that students can complete. And then you as the teacher have access to a report which shows student confidence for the module, which you can use to compare with results or perhaps inform your teaching as to whether you perhaps need to revise or reteach some content to build up student confidence. Morgan has very kindly written for us some statistical investigations and probability simulations, which we've included one of each in each textbook. So that's 4 statistical investigations and 4 probability simulations in total, included in the statistics and probability chapter modules of each book. So these are designed to directly teach and assess the content that's included in the curriculum to help you with planning lessons for something that we know is brand new content. We also address the computational and algorithmic thinking content in the curriculum. We've developed new computational thinking class projects to help you cover this curriculum content. We have inter-year links between all of the projects so that if you're finding perhaps the Year 9 or Year 10 project a bit advanced, or you and your students have access to all of them from Year 7 to 10. We've followed the curriculum carefully and gradually introduced pseudocode from as extension activities only in Year 7 and 8, so they're completely optional. Introduced slowly in Year 9, and then it's covered in more detail in Year 10. This is designed to have theory, check your understanding questions, which we include answers to at the back of the book. And then we are also including tasks that will provide you, the teachers, with sample solutions to these, but we won't be giving them to students. This gives you the option to use them as assessment or to help you design an assessment for this content. So we also include 2 semester reviews in each of the print books, one halfway through and one at the end of the year. These include short answer and mathematical modelling questions. We're really excited that we still have our partnership with the Australian Maths Trust. So each print book includes 2 spreads of problem-solving questions developed by the AMT. These are great low floor, high ceiling questions, and we've provided links to how you could use these throughout the year in the detailed lesson plans that we provide to teachers for every module. So let's move on to talking about the digital. So we're launching a new Oxford Digital for Back to School 2025 with an improved user experience and learning design that works to improve student engagement and performance. It's fully accessible content, which means it's reflowable and will appear nicely regardless of the device that you're using, whether it be a phone, a tablet, a laptop, a computer, anything you like. And we'll have integrated questions and activities throughout. We're excited to show you the live lesson mode that we've developed, which we'll see in a moment. And we have powerful data and reporting tools to back all of this up. We have our 4 digital partners, the AMT, Desmos, Learnosity, and Quizlet, helping us to power all our content and assessment online. We have a very exciting partnership with ClickView, where we're developing more than 350 new key content videos. So it's at least one video for every lesson in the book to cover the entire Victorian Curriculum version 2.0. These are designed to be 3 to 5 minute videos which match the theory and worked examples in the book, in each book. The first 200 videos will be ready by the end of this year. So for back to school, you'll have 200 of the videos, and that'll take us to about halfway through the Year 10 book. So Year 7 to 9 should be fully covered. And where there are any small gaps, we're able to fill them with licensed videos from ClickView, which you can access those videos, the licensed ones, if you have a ClickView account. But the 200 for back to school, all you'll need is your Oxford Digital account. They'll be embedded in the product. So it's very exciting. I'm going to hand over to one of our sales team, Caitlin, who will take you over the pricing and availability dates for the series. If you like what you've seen today and would like some more information, please let one of our sales team know. They're happy to arrange a demonstration for you and other members of your faculty, either online or in person. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex and Morgan. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin. I am one of the sales team here in Victoria. There are 3 of us. So Alicia and Paul are my 2 colleagues. So I'm sure you have spoken to one of us over the years. However, I just wanted to run you through some of the purchasing options. So if you're looking for a digital only option, like Alex quickly mentioned, there is an essentials or premium option, and we will have more details in the near future as to what the differences between the two are. Things like live lessons will be in the premium as an example. So they would be $49.95 per student for the essential or $59.95 for the premium. So essentially it's just a $10 difference to get that premium and have access to all of the resources. The digital and print options are $69.95 and $79.95 for the essential and premium. So essentially the print book itself is just a $20 add-on. And you can always do a digital upgrade. The premium would have to be a school decision though, so that all of you are able to use it and all of your students are able to use it. In regards to the availability, we're looking for the digital availability to be ready from October of this year. So that would be the student book being entered into the platform, being able to have a look, and then additional resources just continue to be added between October and ready for back to school. And then the print, as you can see, is kind of a step-by-step throughout the year levels. So from August through to September, October, and then finally Year 10 being released in November. Now, the contact information here is, so as a rule of thumb, Alicia kind of looks after the east, southeast, Paul looking after the north and northeast, and then myself looking after the west. So feel free to take down our details if you haven't already got them, and reach out if you do have any further questions. We'd love to, come out and meet with you and either run yourself or even your faculty through the different options or anything that Alex and Morgan have gone through today. Thank you so much. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'll jump back to the premium versus essential features. So everything that's not on this slide is included in essential, and these are the add-ons that we've got for premium features. So we're developing an AI student tutor for learning support. You should look out for extra information about the AI student tutor next term. We'll be reaching out to you. There'll be advanced reporting that'll help you track student results and against the curriculum and just in general in a lot more detail to help you plan your teaching and your students' learning with some extra help from Oxford Digital. The live lesson mode, as we've mentioned a couple of times, will be a premium feature. Premium subscribers will also have access to the integrated Oxford English Dictionary, which is very exciting. So anytime students or you or your students aren't sure what a word means or how to use it, you'll be able to look it up straight away. So now I will jump forward a couple of slides. Before we wrap up, also really happy to announce that we're running a competition because we think we do maths better, and we're going to prove it by offering 4 schools in Victoria a chance to win over $50,000 worth of Oxford maths for their 7 to 10 cohort. I would encourage you to scan this QR code, read the details, and find out what's happening. We'll be offering 2 schools a digital print blend and 2 schools a digital only. And we want to see the impact that this could have on you and your students. The winning schools will partner with Oxford to look at this overall impact and how using this product has improved student and learning and outcomes. So really excited. We hope you scan it. We find out more. There's a brochure included in the handouts of this webinar as well. So lastly, open to any questions. We'll bring Morgan back as a presenter. You're welcome to put through any Q&A, any questions in the Q&A. Caitlin's here as well if you have any questions about right. So while we're waiting for any questions to come through, I was just thinking, Morgan, you wrote the content for us on the statistical investigations and probability simulations. How would you go about using that in your classroom?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So Oxford gave me a lot of freedom in how I wrote these, which was great. When they asked me to write it, they said, you're a teacher, how would you want these to run in a classroom? So I thought the best thing to do would be to write them as standalone lessons. So it's like a double-page spread in the textbook. And each year it teaches you teaches students how to run a statistical investigation, and it gives them an actual statistical investigation to do. So there's one on, rainfall, and they're encouraged to get data from the Bureau of Meteorology, and there are other ones in different years where they collect the data themselves by asking their classmates questions. Just these curriculum points are not really something you can put in just one textbook question. And then I just wanted to take that stress away from the teachers that they have to cover this curriculum point by planning their own statistical investigation or their own probability simulation, and just say, now there's a 2-page spread in Oxford, you can open up to that, tell students, go to this page and do this investigation. So it's, barely any preparation for the teacher, or even no preparation. It's just, there's a probability simulation ready to go, and students open up Microsoft Excel if they have it, or otherwise a different spreadsheet program, and do a probability simulation. So we cover the birthday problem in year 10. How many people do you need in a room before the probability of 2 of them sharing a birth date is at least 50%, and they can actually simulate that in Excel really easily. So I've written the code and how to find, how they can code it into their computer as well, into their spreadsheet. So yeah, this just takes the stress away from the teachers and just gives you a resource where you can just run it as a single period or double period lesson, and that covers that curriculum point each year in year 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Morgan. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up the webinar today? We don't seem to have any questions coming through. No, that's okay. So thank you everyone for attending today. If you do have any questions that you'd like to be answered, please reach out to our sales team. If they don't know the answer, they'll pass it on to me and my team in the maths. So again, thank you for coming. I hope you had a great day and that you all have a wonderful week ahead.